AI's Dirty Secret, or How to Spend $500,000 of Supercomputing. Episode 10. What happened next? It's September the 10th, 2023, 5 months after the deadline for the inaugural see-through carbon competition. The 10th being a Sunday, it's See-Through News Newsletter Day. Robert's writing an update. Not much work today, he's just editing the summaries Johnson Jaiola and Daniel Zepeda Rivas have sent him and adding a few comments of his own. Johnson's update details the logistical complexities that would make him such a great TV news producer. His research collected and collated data in real time about 5 cooking instruments, firewood plus 4 comparators in 12 states across Nigeria, involving 20 local governments and 36 communities, mainly in the southwest. Output from the cloud computing analysis includes granular breakdowns by cooking instruments and geography and data visualizations. Johnson describes a unique, precise, accurate data set made possible by the see-through carbon competition that's already having real-world impact on the ground. Government agencies, aid organisations and NGOs now have statistically rigorous evidence to guide informed decision-making on maximising carbon reduction through the targeted provision of clean energy cookstoves. In keeping with See-Through News' principles of transparency, Johnson has made his data freely available and his methodology open source to encourage similar research across Africa and beyond. How about Daniel? What has he done with his 36 terabytes of output? For a start, he's had to scramble to find anywhere to store it. Even these days, 36 terabytes is a serious volume of ones and zeros. Daniel persuades University College London to hold it while he works out backups. He spends weeks transferring the data to a couple of stacks of hard drives with multiple redundancy for insurance. The stacks humming on his desk are about the size of a cardboard box. They feel as hot as a data center processor. Meanwhile, he and other architectural and engineering experts have been spot-checking the output. As we now know from ChatGPT trained on the internet, robots are only as smart as the data they're trained on. There's always the risk that despite all Daniel's efforts in collecting, matching and preparing the data inputs, the AI processing had generated nonsense outputs. Their spot checks check out. They all make sound engineering sense. Particularly interesting are some results that initially look wrong, weird or counterintuitive, like only insulating certain faces of certain buildings with certain usage and occupancy. No architect or builder would ever consider anything other than symmetrical insulation. Only insulating, say, the north and east faces of a building just looked wrong. But when they ran the numbers, there are indeed certain conditions where selective insulation would reduce carbon both in construction and ongoing heating costs. This is just the kind of thing robots are good at, spotting patterns that elude even human experts used to seeing the world in a particular way. It's a cracking example of how judicious use of a precious carbon-intensive resource, in this case AI processing, can be justified because it reduces vastly more carbon in a way no number of human experts would have worked out. Unlike, say, spending hours on video calls, streaming movies or generating pictures of the Pope in a funny hat. With his colleagues at UCL, and FCB Studios' architectural practice, Daniel is doing some building himself. They already have a working demo of a tool to help anyone building a new building or retrofitting an old one to save the maximum amount of carbon while building the most robust construction. Whether you're building a hut in Namibia or a tower block in Toronto, The design tool will consult the handbook made of those 36 terabytes of computations and tell you the lowest carbon way to make your structure most resilient to future climate extremes. Anyone building anything anywhere in the world will be able to consult Daniel's free online database to construct something that will withstand extremes of heat, flood and wind when traditional building practices and methods no longer work. And Daniel's handbook will mean the new way they design and build will minimise putting more carbon in the atmosphere and making future extremes of heat, flood and wind even more extreme. In his summary, Daniel makes clear what has made this possible. He writes, "The $500,000 allocated to the project was fully utilised the best way possible. This additional funding allowed us to overcome the technological challenges we were facing and expedite the process, resulting in a more robust and comprehensive analysis." Daniel and his colleagues are on track to make their handbook and design tool publicly available to anyone on the planet in a matter of months. It has the potential to massively reduce huge amounts of carbon. And that was the only condition Tom placed when he rang Robert to make Yellow Dog's donation 9 months before. There you have it, a neat ending. But is this story over? Will there be further episodes? Don't know. Was Tom's unusual gift a one-off, or the start of something huge that could measurably speed up carbon reduction, particularly in the global south, for the foreseeable future? Don't know. Watch this space. Maybe you can tell us. Maybe you can take action to change the story. This is a real-life, real-world cliffhanger to which no one knows the answers. Here are a few unanswered questions. Will Johnson's open-source methodology and data convince governments in Nigeria and other African countries to act on firewood use for daily cooking? Who will use Daniel's free online low-carbon building design tool, and how much carbon will it save? Will Yellow Dog's low-carbon approach convince investors it deserves to survive the venture capital drought now ravaging high-tech startups? Will Ranuka's global network continue to grow and foster researchers in poor countries without any funding or formal support? Can Robert leverage the competition to benefit see-through carbon, the radical new carbon auditing standard launched in September 2023? Will we continue to treat carbon computing and AI as an infinite resource and ignore carbon consequences? Is the story we've just told you a one-off, or can it convince big cloud computing players to donate processing, mentoring and expertise to make the competition bigger, more comprehensive and permanent? Or is this the end of the story?
AI's Dirty Secret, or How to Spend $500,000 of Supercomputing, was narrated by George Hinchliffe, who also wrote the music. It was written, produced and mixed by Robert Stern. The See-Through News podcast is a See-Through News production. See-Through News is a zero-budget social media network with the goal of speeding up carbon drawdown by helping the inactive become active. For more, visit seethroughnews.org. Thank you for listening.